What's up, Smitty? How you doing?
What's happening, man? I'm doing good.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I almost canceled or told you that we got to postpone this because I got down here and as you can tell, like I'm freezing my ass off. Like basement it got cold. Like I feel like I'm like in an igloo. Like if I open up my little man cave door right there, there's like a little snowstorm going on right now. It's not bad as it was, but still, it's cold in upstate New York right now.
Well, you live in New York, man.
I keep telling myself, like, why am I so miserable? It's like, well, you live in New York.
It's gonna be like May before you guys see some warm weather, man.
Yeah. I don't even know. Like, this is I talked shit earlier this season. I was like, hey, this has been a mild winter. Things gonna be okay. And then all of a sudden, just like Texas died, because of freezing temperature. So it's like I don't know when winter's gonna end. I'm gonna keep it that way. Hopefully, like mid March, first week of April, we'll be able to have some like open water. We can get out there and start getting after them. But I don't know.
Gosh, man, that would kill me, dude. That would kill me.
Yeah, it sucks. But what's going on with you, man? How you feeling? Are you feeling recharged, rested?
Yeah, I am, man. I gotta admit, yesterday I was dragging ass all day long, man. All day long I was dragging ass. It was a lot of work over the weekend in the past week,
Right. Well, especially this time. This was that was a tough tournament. That was not just the fishing, but the weather conditions and everything. I mean, I was looking at Ryan Lambert, the winner, and you could tell he froze his ass off by the look in his face. It's like he had the red cheeks, and like he's been through some shit. And man, being like when I was a soldier, I was stationed at Fort Drum and having to deal with the elements, and like just the cold will break you. And like when it's over, like it's there's a lot of fatigue, a lot of tiredness because like for one, it's just constant this, and then it's the mind get like you're having to tell yourself to suck it up the whole time, and it's tough doing anything in the cold.
Yeah. I mean, and that's exactly right. The cold just takes it out of you sitting in it. I'm kind of used to it, because I fish all winter long anyway, and 40 degrees is actually not horrible for me, and 20 degrees isn't horrible for me. But still, at the end of the day, and you're just being out in that type of weather all day, every day for a couple of days, it wears you out, man. It just sucks. It sucks the energy out of you.
Right. Well, let's get into it, man. I really want to talk about this tournament because I thought this, it was tough. It's no one was expecting it to be this cold, and it's a tournament down in the south, and those guys aren't used to those kind of temperatures. Man, I just thought it was cool. Not cool, but I thought it was just like, a good thing to talk about because it was hard fishing. I think only 3 people caught limits. Besides the 3 of you guys that that placed in the top 3, like everyone struggled. And not just everyone, like people who don't usually struggle had a very, very hard time. It just tells you like what the elements were like, what the variables were, and
just think about that for a second, man. 4th place, at a Hobie tournament, man. So we're talking legitimately. These are most of the best guys. Not everyone was there, but just about everybody was there, man. And 3 people, I mean, basically 3% got limits. 2 days. Man, that's when I was sitting at awards, right? I had no idea that was the case, right? I'm sitting at awards and I'm listening to AJ say that, man, and I was just, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, "You're kidding me!" And man, that's exactly right. And that's exactly how hard it was, man. I mean, I went to places where I know there were bass there. 100% there are bass there. I couldn't get a bite. I mean, I went up the clinch, and honestly, I went up the clinch and launched where Lambert launched, and I didn't get a single bite up there, but muskie and perch.
Yeah. What do you think? Because me and you both fish in the Northeast, and like I fish in temperatures that are whatever. Like I'll go out there and there's a blizzard going on sometimes. It is what it is when you're up here. You get used to fishing those kind of conditions, but the fish up here don't mind it that much. You know what I mean? Like you can still find a bite. It might be a slow bite, or it might just be a day. It might be shitty temperatures, cold weather, cold water, but they're just hungry. Because they're like winter be damned, it's time to eat. And then they'll go out there and they'll start, but down south, they don't get those kind of things. This was I mean, if you look at Texas, it was so bad that like they're having I don't know what their fishing season is going to be like this year because they had such a die off or whatever. Yeah. So it's just like these fish weren't ready for this kind of temperatures. Did you? I mean, do you think that played had a lot to do with what was going on in Tennessee?
Oh, absolutely, 100%, 100%. That the weather down there was what changed the bite, and the weird thing is these fish aren't used to this cold weather, not for so prolonged, right? And down in Knoxville, they're used to like 2 nights maybe of it being in the 20s, right. And then it always pops back up, right? Well, not a week, not 2 weeks, where it was like single digits in some of the mornings, you know. So they just weren't used to it, and they don't act like the bass around here. Like I looked at maps and I'm like, well, they're going to be here, here, here for sure, and this is where the biters are going to be, and blah blah blah. Well, man, they weren't there, you know, and they were in the line of logic I was using to determine those places along the spawning routes, right? Along with the fish travel along the spawning routes. But they had stayed up a lot more shallow than I thought. I was finding fish in 8 to 10 feet of water. And honestly, with those water temps, if it was Cincinnati in Southwest Ohio, I'd be looking in 20 to 30 feet. And that's where I started at, because I'm thinking, yeah, they'll be right at that 20 foot, right where it breaks up. There'll be one hole right before it jumps up to like 15, 10 feet and starts heading up that way. And they'll be in that hole getting ready to stage, right? Because they'll pull back, and that's where they'll pull back to. Man, those fish up there don't pull back that far. I think that's what a lot of people were making a mistake on, myself included, pre-fishing. I was fishing a lot of offshore stuff, man, kind of thinking that they'd be pulled out more. And in reality, they were the ones I found that were biting were 8 to 10 feet of water. And another guy who launched with me, who was also in the money, he was catching his in 2 feet of water. Yeah, 2 feet of water, 2 feet, 42 degrees, 2 feet of water.
It's kind of funny to me because Jake Harshman, we talked on the phone the other day. He was like, you know, in those temperatures, would you ever have thought to throw a chatterbait? And at first I was like, that's kind of weird. But then I thought about it, like just fishing up here. I'm like, and I didn't want to tell him that. I didn't want to be the asshole. But I'm like, yeah, you know, and this is just because of what I've experienced up here in upstate New York. You know, it's not that I'm some guru or whatever and understand cold waters, but like I absolutely would have threw a chatterbait shallow because for some reason, like when it's cold, but it's not like, you know, an actual, you know, whatever, like in the heart of winter. But when it's like in those weird where like some days it's kind of warm, then some days it drops down the cold. Like they'll move up to like the shallow water to try to find the warmest water possible, especially depending on where the sun is. And I've had like great days in like early springs, you know, throwing a chatterbait just because, you know, I found the water that was maybe 2 or 3 degrees warmer than the rest of the lake. And it could have been like, you know, a small creek arm, you know, at the banks of the cove or whatever, but whatever it was, that water temperature was just a little bit warmer. And I mean, I'm talking about sometimes it was only like a degree warmer. Like it was just that subtle. And I would throw a chatterbait or a, you know, a square bill or something, and that's how I would catch them. Now it wouldn't be, you know, it'd be a small window, but that's kind of where I would find them, is like just hanging up there, trying to stay as warm as possible. But like I said, this is like during like those early spring days where the weather just goes back and forth, and you know that's like an upstate New York thing. And that
no, man. I talk about this in my seminars all the time. That you look for even a 1 or 2 degree temperature difference, and the fish are going to congregate in those areas because they're just a little bit more comfortable. You know, it doesn't take a lot for you to go from feeling really cold and shitty to I feel just slightly better, and the fish feel every degree, man. Even way more than that. They're way more temperature sensitive than we are. I mean, you're spot on with that, man. And I think that played a lot in here too, because Ewing, where he was fishing, he was talking about he found just a couple degree warmer water, and that's where his fish were.
Right.
You know, I mean, he was totally saying what you were saying. You know, he'd fish this whole area, but where it was just 2 degrees warmer, all his fish came from.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I can't remember who else I was talking about, but we're talking about, you know, when the cold fronts come in, we have like a tendency to think that pushes fish back to stage 1 of the, you know, as they're starting to move up.
Yeah.
We think that because there's a cold front, they immediately go back to like those deep water that they were hanging out in the winter. And that's another thing I've come to find out living up here is that that's not it. Like, it might push them back, but it's not usually these big. And that was like a mistake I made for years. Like, I'm like, oh, it's fucking freezing outside, so I gotta go find deep water. And then like I was never finding them or whatever, wasn't going as successful as I want to be. And then I started making like small changes, like okay, they want to be here, but I got to find out where they got stopped, and then maybe and whatever. I would start from where they want to be and would work my way out, and I'd find out they were a lot closer to that spot than what I realized. Yep. Because like once that cold front end, it didn't really push them back as much as it just kind of stopped them and like kind of made them find a spot that was going to be they would help them get through that whatever time, whatever that small weather pattern change. Absolutely. They would stay there for the most part. They would find something in that area that would work for them instead of going all the way back to like whatever you want to say, like the early stages or the winters. Yeah.
100%. They don't get pushed all the way back to their wintering hole, man. And honestly, on their way from their wintering holes to up those creeks, right? And they go up to where it gets into a flat. That's what they do. They follow the deepest parts and they move up in stages. And I even talk about this in one of my latest videos, man. And I really used it. My last 2 videos was textbook what I did at Watts Bar to find the bass. Is I went up a creek, literally a submerged creek, man. I followed it from 30 feet of water. I did the opposite of what you did. You started where you thought they would be. I started up a creek towards where I thought they would be, right? Because where I went, there was all these creeks that would intersect, man. It was crazy. It was really cool looking. So I went up this creek to where I thought they would be. And, man, they didn't pull out near as far. I thought they were going to pull out to, like, the second spot. And I call them, like, rest stops right. Or restaurants, because it's along that freeway where they come up. But they feel comfortable to hang out in those spots till it's just right for them to move completely up, right? And there'll be 2 or 3 of them along the way as the temperature changes and the different waves of them come in and go out and stuff. And that's exactly what I did, man. I found them in the last depression before these spawning flats started up, man. And I had it was twofold what was going on. There was a small marina there, so there was 2 docks that came out on either side. And the spawning, it went up underneath the docks. So it was kind of shallower underneath the docks instead of deeper. Like a lot of places, it's usually deeper under the docks, but this was small, kind of weird marina. But that 8-foot zone, man, 8 to 10-foot zone, all my biters came from a 30 by 30 spot. I mean, it was awful. It was like the same 3 casts, basically.
Right.
I rotated a little bit and changed the direction of my cast, but it was basically 3 casts.
Now, how long did it take you to really like get on anything? I mean, you were down there for a few days pre-fishing. I mean, did you find them? Did you find it pretty quick? Did it take you a lot of time? Did you go into the first day of the tournament? Because like I said, I talked to Jake, and it was like he was almost like, I'm not speaking word. I hope I'm not making him feel bad, but it's like he knew like going into that, like he wasn't confident, and like he didn't even know if he was gonna if he was gonna make it a day 2 because it was just like nothing was working for him. What was your experience? Did you kind of have a were you able to figure it out?
So what happened to me, man, is basically all my pre-fishing turned into a multi-species smash fest, man. I mean, I was having a great time, dude. I was catching giant drum, big catfish. I was catching Mondo perch, man. These were like 20-inch perch with giant guts on them, one after another. I mean, I wasted so much time fishing for all these other species because I was having a good time. And I only caught 1 black bass in pre-fishing. And within the last couple hours, it kind of dawned on me like, well, I really gotta figure something out like now, or I'm gonna be completely screwed, Right. And so I started digging through my baits, man. I just started thinking, I'm like, well, this is the stuff I've been throwing. This is what I would throw. And I start thinking, I'm like, there's so much of these small little shad. Right? I mean, they're like this big, and those are the ones that are staying alive. The bigger shad are all dying off. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, I got this little shad style swim bait that I use for white bass and hybrids in the wintertime, man. It's my winter go-to bait. I'm like, that one place I caught that 1 black bass, I had my fish finder. I could see there were other fish there. I just couldn't get them to bite. I could only get 1 to bite. And I'm like, I got to go back there. I'm over an hour away on the lake, so I drive there. There's 3 hours left. I now have 2 hours. It takes me over a half hour to get to the spot by kicking to it from the ramp, man. So I got less than an hour on the spot, man. That I've been to once. A little swim bait that's a shad profile. It's a sassy shad from Bass Pro. It's super cheap bait that everyone overlooks, and Now, Ewing did say that that's like kind of like a secret bait down there that works really good. And I had no idea. It works killer up here for white bass. But I threw it out there, man, and I did the white bass retrieve. Retrieve it just like in wintertime. Let it hit the bottom. Slow retrieve along the bottom, basically a few inches off, then pause it. Slow retrieve, pause it. Slow retrieve, bite. And, man, I caught 5 bass like in an hour. And I was like, okay. I turned around. I probably shouldn't even caught that 5th one. I'm like, this is all I got. It was all I have. Literally, I had to kick it back to the ramp right then because we were supposed to be off the water now at 4. No longer. I could be wrong on this, but I don't think we can be on the water after 4 now. Right. So I had to get back to the ramp, and I left. I'm like, this is where I'm going because this is all I got. You know, it was all I had. I didn't catch any big fish there. I wasn't like, yeah, man, this is a top 3 spot. I was just like, man, I hope I can come back tomorrow and catch 5 and just catch the limit. And I came back the next day, and within 2 hours, I had my limit. And then I called a few times, and it just went on again for the second day, man. The second day was even harder because now I'm basically fished it for 3 days, Right. And like I said, it's a 30 by 30 spot. I literally sat between these 2 docks and the bank, and just 3 casts, one over there, one down the middle, one over there, one over there, one down the middle, one over there. And I couldn't get them to bite anything else, man. The only thing else I got a bite on there was a small bugs rigged on a Picasso rhino head, man, a weedless one. I love those for any type of Ned rig stuff or super small baits. Those rhino heads are killer. And I had to let it sit forever. It was like one of those things you just toss out. You barely move it. You let it sit. You barely move it. I got 1 bite on that. All the rest of them came on that swim bait, and they were all bites on the paws. I mean, just totally textbook what I do back home for white bass and hybrids this time of year. I mean, it is zero difference. And there was a couple key things in that area, right? In that 30 by 30 area, there was a couple brush piles, and there were these big cement square blocks. I don't know. I still can't figure out what they used them for, but they were just like these, and they weren't in any real position. They were just like these big freaking cement square blocks. And man, a couple of them made it key. Like you would swim it over the brush, and you come right past those cement blocks. And where that brush and the cement blocks were together, there was a little gap, and you could see the fish in there on the fish finder. And you just had to cast. It was a grind, man. It was tough.
Well, how'd you originally find, like, when you were going through that? And I know you start out and work your way. You were talking about how you're kind of working your way in. Was there anything like specific that you like to look for in like conditions like that? Like I said, like me personally, like when it's cold here, like early spring, like there's 2 things I do. This year I'm gonna expand a little bit and start using my electronics a little bit better. But I would find the warmest water possible and what grass I could find, and that would be the areas I would hit. And I found success, but being up in upstate New York and having places like Kayak, it's like, why are you not offshore dropping a drop shot and catching some of those early giants? But just out of curiosity, because this is a weird time of year. I don't even want to fish a tournament this time of year. Like I like fishing like the cold times of year, but it's not like I don't go out there super confident. I'm going out there, when I go out and fish up here in the early spring, it's like I'm going there to find a few bites, hopefully catch a monster or 2 or whatever. But it's not like I'm going out there to like with the intentions of of crushing them. And like to the fish a tournament, I'm just like, no, this is just I use this time of the year to get back in the saddle, to get my kayak, everything working the way I want to, brush off the cobwebs, if I got to repair stuff, all that. Pretty much this time of the year is just me testing things out.
Yeah.
So, but what, you like going into this, like, are you looking like anything specifically that you just know works for you?
Absolutely, man. I mean, because honestly, where I found the bass was like one of the first places I picked on doing my map study. And it was the second place I went to down there. So that was like one of my high probability places. And I literally flipped the coin to see if I was going to go up the clinch first or go to this spot first on the first day of pre-fishing, man. And when I flipped that coin, it just happened to be the clinch that got it. So it was one of my places when I looked on the map, I was like, yeah. And what I was looking for was to find deep areas that had had long running points that went up to flats. Not just long running points, but long running points that go up to flats, where creek beds would go up and then they would flatten out.
Okay.
I mean, that's huge because you want to find those spawning areas, and not every flat's going to be a spawning area. That's one of the reasons you pick areas that have a bunch of this stuff.
Right.
Because then you can cruise a bunch of different areas and find that spawning flat or find where they are on the route up. You know what I mean? Because maybe they weren't going to be at 8 to 10 feet. Maybe they were going to be at 15 to 20, right?
Right.
So you want to find places that have both, you know, and you want to find those really cool swinging creek channels, man. If it's a straight shot creek channel, I usually have zero luck in those. I usually like the swinging ones. Now, this place also had a bunch of road beds, submerged road beds and bridges that went over those creeks. So that gets me excited too this time of year because they'll also conjugate on those road beds because they heat up a little quicker. And the road beds, they were really defined and looked very clean. Like when you went over them, you could see them on your down scan clear as day. There was no question whether it was the road bed or if you were next to it. It was like, that's the road bed. Oh, look, there's the guardrail still up on the – I mean, it was awesome looking, but I just could not find them. They were all up shallow. I'm convinced all the fish were up shallow, way shallower than what people were expecting. All my friends that caught them, everyone that I talked to, no one was catching them deep.
Well, let me ask you this, this is just hypothetically or just whatever, just talking shit. But you know, a lot of times when you see this, it's like I agree with you. You know, if Ryan Lambert won it, throwing a chatterbait shallow, and everyone else is sucking, there's something there. Like obviously, they're shallow, and you can catch them with a chatterbait. And
E-Wing was catching them shallow. You know, everybody was catching them shallow. Tim Isaacs was, Tarek was. You know, right.
So, what do you think it is like? You think it's like one of those things where it kind of separates anglers, really good experienced angler from the other ones, because a lot of times for me, I'm totally opposite what I'm going to say. Like I'm a guy who freaks out, will go shallow, deep, whatever, just freak out all day. But then there's also some people who are just, I guess I would say, like kind of stubborn, like no, we're going to fish deep because that's where they're supposed to be, and we're not, and they don't make those changes, and move up shallow, and that's why you would see such a especially at a time like this where it is like where the weather conditions are playing such a heavy effect that you see a difference, in literally only 3 people were able to really find a limit on both days, and the rest of the people were struggling. You think one thing I've been wondering is how stuck on patterns that human beings get on.
Oh yeah,
more than the fish do. The fish are just going to do what the fish do. The fish want basically 3 things. They want to be safe, they want to eat, and they want to breed. I can't think of anything else that the fish wants to do, and I don't know if a fish really cares about the time of the year or the water temps as much as a human being does. But I just see what I'm starting to learn, especially this year with it being different than the last 2 years, is that a lot of the problems that anglers have is that we think we know what the fish wants to do, and we think we know where the fish wants to be, but we're not fish, and we have no idea what a fish thinks like. And so you find people who just won't leave the deep or will stay shallow and not go or whatever. They just
and to be fair to those anglers, right?
I'm one of them too.
You have to be fair to them. That's their strengths, right? So they're fishing their strengths. And I tell that to everybody who asks me for any type of advice. Not that I'm the best angler in the world, and I never will be the best angler in the world, but you want to try to find situations where you put yourself in your strengths fishing these tournaments. It doesn't always work out that way. And especially for this tournament here, you had to be flexible. Right. You had to be super adaptable, and you had to have an open mind on where and when these fish were going to be and bite. Because I guarantee you a lot of people were around fish. They just weren't biting. But I still say, man, most of them were up shallow. That's just how it was down here. And that's one of the things about having a plan to dissect new water, because you don't know, you're not from there. You can only learn so much online. Once you get down there, you just have to find where the biters are, because the fish are going to be everywhere. It's just a matter of finding where the ones that are going to bite. And I talk about this in a lot of my seminars, and I've written about it, but it's one of those things where if you don't have a plan, you're going to fail. You need to put in a plan, I don't know this lake, so this is where I want them to be, and this is where I think they'll be this time of year. So I'm going to start there. But then whether it's shallow or deep, you should be working yourself in the other direction. Right? Like if you think they're going to be deep and you don't find, start working your way that way, and vice versa. If you think they're going to be on wood and they're not on wood, you should start working your way off from wood and working yourself towards something else, whether it's rock, open mud flats, creek beds, you know. And it's just a matter of having that plan and a strategy to deal with it when you don't find them. Because, you know, for me, it's always a new lake, man. I didn't grow up fishing, you know what I mean? And my dad wasn't a competitive fisherman guy. He didn't own a boat. So I didn't, you know, everyone else I know has been like, yeah, I've been there once or twice. Well, I've never been there. And I've never been to any of these places. So I have to constantly go to them and be adaptable. And I think it's actually helped me a lot as far as doing these higher end tournaments because it's more competitive. And I'm a little more willing than some people to go outside my comfort zone to find those fish.
Right.
You know, not that this tournament was that. I'm not saying that, you know, Watts Bar was outside my comfort zone, because throwing a small swim bait like I was is very much in my comfort zone. That is, I mean, I've been doing it all winter, you know.
I think like one of the things I was getting at, if I can say it right, was like one of the things I can't remember. Like I was talking to another angler on here, Travis Moran. He's like you. He does seminars and all kinds of stuff. And like one of the things that we were talking about was like the excuses. And I'm not saying this as a negative. Like it's okay to have excuses. This is fishing. It's a hard sport. But like you always talk about like the mindset going into these tournaments and having a strong mind and having the ability to adapt and not freak out. But like one of the things that, you know, I find a lot of us doing, you know, it's like they're not biting. And that's true. You're not catching them. They're not biting. But the thing is, like, someone else is catching them. Someone is winning that tournament. So that's not that they're not biting. It's just you just haven't found them biting, or you just haven't done the right thing yet. Yep. And so, but like one of the things that, you know, worries me about these tournaments or whatever when I go into them is, you know, and like you said, like not having this plan and that's one thing I really want to focus on this year is like really like it's okay to have a plan, but like we all heard that famous saying, it's a good plan until you get punched in the mouth. And that's, you know, what really happens to me every tournament. You have a plan, the plan doesn't work out, you freak out, or you stay there and you keep trying to do the insanity of doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. But you know, it's you know, now you can't say that, use that excuse of like they're not biting. You know, you got to go find where they're biting if you want to win this tournament. Because if you use that excuse, they're not biting, it's just a tough day, you're not going to win that tournament. You got to go actively find and search those fish. And you know, that was really kind of cool. What you said was like, you got to know how to break down water. You got to know how to, you know, pretty much. If I had to, you know, when anglers talk about grinding, it took me a while what that meant, because, you know, I come from like very athletic sports that have this pull and tug and exhaustion and pain and gains type environment. Now I kind of understand like where that fits into fishing. It's like, you're not getting bit here. What are you going to do next? Now you got to go with this. You got to go there and work that spot. That's not where you got to work this. Like, where are these fish? How are you moving towards the fish and isolating them and figuring out how to win this tournament? Because if you don't do that, if you just sit there with the excuse like it's just a tough day, they're not biting, you're not going to go home with a check, and Ryan Lambert's going to brag about it on the next KBN.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I was having this conversation with one of my good friends about this recently, man. We're not competing with the other anglers. Everyone thinks, man, it's like someone beat me. No, it has everything to do with you're competing with the fish.
Right.
I mean, that's the competition you're having. It really has nothing to do with other anglers and what they're doing. It has everything to do with what you're doing and the fish that you're either catching or you're not catching. I mean, it sounds weird to say it like that because, you know, someone wins and someone gets second and someone gets third and someone comes in last, right?
It's one of those sports where that absolutely makes sense, though, because, you know, what you do on the lake has nothing to do with me. There's nothing that me and you can do that are going to affect each other. I can't sit there and throw bombs at you to try to prevent you from winning. Like, we are on our own. There is no interaction with us at all. So it's not like we're not competing against each other. I mean, we are, but we're not head-to-head like combat. Like, this is like you're in your own little bubble and I'm in my own little bubble, and that's it. Like I said, it's not like other sports where like we have like what I do has an effect on you.
You have physical contact in all other sports, man. You're physically against each other. In this one, it's not that way. This sport, it's not. It is totally you and the fish, man, and whoever can coax those babies out, the big ones, that's the winner, you know.
So just for like let's just say for me and everyone out there on a day like this, because like I be honest, I don't know if I'm ever going to fish this early in the season. I get to watching it, not until I start cashing checks, and I feel like I'm comfortable with going down there and competing because this was tough. When I was watching, I'm like, man, it's tough. Like I almost went down to that tournament. Like my wife gave me the go. The only reason I didn't go because I haven't had my kayak yet. I'm like, how about you just take this part of the year off and hit it hard when your season opens up, save money and stuff. So I held off on it, but I'm absolutely glad I am because it would have been a horrible trip and I would have had these red cheeks and these, whatever, bad feeling and bad taste in my mouth, whatever. But, something like this, like knowing that the conditions are going to be hard, knowing it's going to be a tough days of fishing and knowing that there's not going to be any of those, there's not going to be a lot of those instant gratifications like you would see like on those nice spring, pre-spawn days when everyone's catching PBs. Like this is going to be a hard day. You're going to struggle for bites. Like what is, and none of that, but it's the conditions. You're freezing. You're hungry. You're cold. You're going to go home and sleep for a few hours and wake up. And I'll tell you, like being in the Army, like it wasn't the cold, like necessarily the cold that was the hardest. It was the waking up the next day and making that decision to face the cold, making the decision that to get out of your sleeping bag, to go out there and freeze and put yourself through that kind of shit. Like, what are like some of the things that you do? Like the mind part of this, of doing this, is staying focused to competing in a tournament that's just this, like this, whatever, just has this many, I don't know, obstacles and variables and crazy conditions.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, and it's hard to put it into words, really. I mean, it comes from doing. The more I do tournaments, the more comfortable I become with the mental aspect of it, and the better I get. There's a couple tournaments last year because I did well in the beginning of the year, and I was set up for Angler of the Year points. When I said I don't have any advantage to fish the second day because I didn't do good the first day, I'm just going to go home. That was a bad call on my part. Right. Honestly, it really was. That's mental weakness right there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, just straight up me going, well, there's no reason. So I'm just not going to try to go out. And this year, because I went through that last year and I kind of saw myself change from, I go to the last minute all the time. I make the last cast just like I make the first cast. I make it with the same effort and the same integrity into it. But, I saw it kind of change after I didn't have that extra motivation for Angler of the Year points, because I had those 3 good placings right away. And then all of a sudden I didn't have that extra. So I was getting lazy. Honestly, I was getting lazy, man. And I should have stayed because you know what? We're going back to Lake Darnell, right? Well, I didn't fish day 2 on Darnell. I left because, right at the end of the day, I had 3 fish come off right at the boat. And it just broke me. Right. I just let it get to me and it got me down. I'm like, I don't want to go out tomorrow. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to see my wife. I'm going to play with my dogs a day early, when I should have stayed because you know what? That would have been another day. I could have gone to a different part of the lake I had never gone to, seen it and gotten that much more information for this year.
Right.
And so there's no way to like really prepare yourself other than to do tournaments, man.
Yeah.
And go through the process of like getting your brains beat in, man, getting discouraged and then picking yourself back up, because every time you do that, it makes the next time easier.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's just no easy way to go through it, man. It's just, it's like doing MMA, man. You got to get beat up a little bit or you're not going to be any good.
Right. Yeah. You got to force yourself to do things that are uncomfortable, and you have to. What you just said is a really good habit. I've actually kind of feel bad about myself. Well, it's not really like it's a sport, and you got to have a sports. You got to have a certain mindset to be successful, and maybe that is what separates the people who are consistently cashing checks from everyone else. And then I think his name is Aaron Steiger,
yeah.
Don't know the guy, but he posted like this is me being an asshole. I'm gonna take full credit. I should, even though I didn't post anything or say anything about it, but I said it in my head, so I'm gonna go ahead and kick myself, in the nuts for this. But like he posted a picture of him on like a bike training. And he was talking about training for the season. I'm, me being the jock that I am, I'm like, well, what? You're gonna ride a bike for fishing, you lift weights for fishing, But now I'm kind of like kicking myself in the nuts. It's like I don't know how much certain things are going to help me as an angler, but it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt me to be in best shape. It's not going to hurt for me going into the sport, like saying, I'm going to go in the sport, being in shape. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to cut out my drinking. I'm going to dedicate to myself to the sport. I don't know if that's really going to help physically. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, it is. Bullshit. Yes, it is. 100%, man. Your fitness level, my fitness levels come way down. You know, I'm getting older. I got bad backs. I'm not able to do all the things I used to. So my fitness level's coming down, but I keep trying my hardest to keep it up, you know, because when I'm on the water, my performance is better. My attitude's better. Dude, when I have to do pre-fishing and I have to drive 12 hours on Monday, and then you have to fish Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, dude, being fit helps through all that stuff. Having good nutrition, even if on the road you're not eating as good, just having that like in your system beforehand and being as best you can is going to help, man. Well, I'm a huge believer in the mind, the body, you know, the two coming together to make things happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, you don't see it because, like I said, like, I come from a jock world where like you do get that, you know, when you got a 6-pack and you feel in shape, you know, going into competition, you're like, okay, I'm ready. You don't. I wasn't looking like the same way as fishing. And like I said, I'm not saying that 6-pack's going to make me a better angler, but I'm saying the mindset and everything you put in to get that 6-pack, that positive mind outlook, that
the work ethic.
The work ethic. I don't mind calling it cockiness. I know a lot of people don't like to call it cockiness, but I believe that anytime like you're competing, you got to have like a self of, you know, cockiness or whatever, that I can do this because I put the work in. I'm healthy. I'm mentally strong. You know, and all, like whatever, like all these little weird jock mentalities that I have, you know, from being in the Army or in the Marine Corps and all this stuff that I had. Like, it wasn't necessarily that I was, but it was like the mindset of all these things that I did that really made me who I was. It wasn't necessarily that I was the fastest or whatever, but it was the fact that I know that I put work in, that I know my I know my worth, and you know, I treat my body right, I treat the competition right, and whatever. And I think that's a lot of things like, you know, I just kind of took for granted like the last few years when I was looking at Aaron doing that, I was kind of like making fun of him. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why not be in good shape? Like, when has being in good shape ever hurt you doing anything? When has eating right ever hurt you doing anything? When has drinking less and being more focused and meditating, all these things, ever hurt you in all your life? And like, you know, I was thinking about that, and like, why wouldn't you do that if you really want to? If there's something you really want to do, you really want to make it to the TOC, you really want to cash the biggest checks, you really want to, you know, get sponsorships and all these other things, why wouldn't you do everything possible? Even like the small subtle things. When you look at like the great athletes and stuff, it's the little things they do. It's the little extra 10 minutes they spend on something. It's the extra recovery things they do, the massages they get, the whatever, all these things they do, whether it really worked or not. Like, I think it has a lot to do with like what it does to your mind and like the way you feel about things, and how, and which is always going to affect the way you perform. And we both know this game is like, it's the most losingest game in sport ever. There's not a lot of winners in this sport. And so why wouldn't you do everything possible? If it's something that you really, really want to do, like, are you going to treat this as a hobby? Are you going to treat this as a profession? Are you going to treat this as a, you know, as a expensive passion that you just really, for some reason, you have to hold that trophy up at the end of the season? Like, then there's just some things that we got to do, I think. And we got to figure out what it is we got to do. And I feel really bad. Aaron's probably a good guy. I've never talked to him. I should have made that joke, you know, internally. But, you know, now that looking back to it, I'm like, you know what? Next time I get on the bike, I want to be like, all right, well, I'm riding this bike so I can be better at kayak fishing. You know, I'm gonna ride the bike anyways. Why not just, you know, start dedicating these things to like?
If you have to kick for an hour, man, to get to your spot, dude. If you have to pedal for an hour, whatever kind of kayak you have. Dude, having that cardio, right? Having that fitness is going to be a huge advantage, because then you're not going to be worn out when you get to your spot. You're not going to be all blown up for the second day when you got to do it 2 days in a row. Or maybe it's 3 days in a row because you found it in pre-fishing. So, you know, I just think all that stuff is just so huge. And, you know, it's something that came back to me from mountain biking days. This whole conversation is bringing back, man. And there was something when we used to race and stuff, and we used to remove all our vices, and we would just, you know, we do it in stages, you know, as we were training, we'd remove them all, man. So we didn't have any vices. We wouldn't drink pop. You wouldn't eat anything sugary, and you wouldn't do anything recreationally, right? You know, you're not drinking, you're not doing any of that stuff. And man, that gave you so much focus, because it just took all the BS out of your life. and just brought everything down right to one little thing, and that's all you were looking at was that one little thing, man.
Yeah.
And that's something that I personally bring into this, man, is I've removed a lot of the stuff that I call my vices, man. I don't drink anymore, and it's not that I have anything against drinking or I was an alcoholic and had problems. I just don't, man. It's because a lot of my attention now has just gone so small, man, that it's really, is it helping me fish? Am I better fisherman? And some people talk about life balance. That's my life balance, man. My life balance is kind of not having balance. It's kind of putting everything on one side of that scale and just see where it goes, and that's my life balance. And that's kind of how I do things, man, is I just get rid of all that other around, all the drama that comes up because someone said something or someone did something, whatever, man. I just let all that stuff go, and it's just all on one thing, man.
Yeah. Do I agree? I don't know why this is such a hard concept for me to because that's exactly how it was whenever I did any kind of competition, or how it was when I was in the military. It was like everything is focusing and funneling into this. Everything I do is helping me get to here. There is, you know what I mean? And who knows? Maybe this is my year. Maybe I'm figuring it out.
It is your year, man. I'm convinced it is, dude. It is your year. Every year is every year.
Dude,
and let's not forget, man, we're talking about all the competition end right now, and we kind of went off on a tangent. But let's not forget, this is really all about the people and the journey that you go on these processes, man. Regardless of where you end up placing, man, it's the people you surround yourself with. It's the laughs you have on the way. It's when we're old and in wheelchairs that we can laugh about what we did together and talk about that big one that got away at Gunnersville, or the lost opportunity or the opportunity you got or whatever, man. It's just, let's not forget about that end of it, because that's just as big, or if not more, than all the rest.
Yeah, I know. We just did our own little personal 30-30 on. But man, Kurt, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything that you got coming up soon? I know that was a big event. I know. What's next for Kurt?
I'm doing Dale Hollow next, man. It's the Kentucky guys are putting it on, man. It's obviously it's like a local event, man, but this is Dale Hollow, dude. I mean, Yeah,
I gotta get down there. I might go, if I get my kayak. I'm probably gonna be doing a Dale Hollow event in April, I think.
Hell yeah, the paddle and fin.
The paddle and fin one. I'm gonna go hang out with my homies there, and Adam Reiser said I can follow him around, so who knows? But all right, man. Well, is there anyone you want to thank that's making fishing easier for you? Dude, congratulations. I didn't even say that. I mean, you're starting the year off kind of like you did last year. A few good events. It seems like this is your time of the year to shine. So congrats on cashing the check on such a hard event. But is there anyone you want to thank that's making fishing easier for you? Any changes?
Yeah, no real changes, man. But I mean, I want to give a big shout out to Hobie. Thank those guys. Their support they're my biggest supporter, man. They are awesome to me, man. They take really good care of me. Hobies do make the best kayaks in the world. I really believe it. I'd buy one. I bought one before. They are the kayaks. Strictly Sail and Kayak in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you need anything Hobie related, give these guys a call, man. They just got 51 more kayaks in, and that's on top of 100 kayak shipment that they had before, man. They got more than just Hobies too. They got all your accessories. Check them out online. They do a bunch of stuff online as well. Fishing online, all my tackle there, Torpedo, Catch, Yak Attack, St. Croix. Couldn't have done it without St. Croix. And last but not least, Picasso Lures, man. I have to take a second and give these guys a huge shout out, because the one bait, that small swim bait, right, dude, the round tungsten jig head that they have fits those baits. I know I did a video. I keep talking about these 2 videos, but dude, this whole tournament thing, man, if you look at those 2 videos, is everything that did well in these 2 tournaments, man. They make the sweetest little setups for small swim baits, and they make all types of other stuff. So give Picasso Lures a check out, man. They make some awesome stuff.
Well, cool, Kurt. I can't thank you enough, man. I love having you on. You're probably the most recurring guest, but you're the only. All my other friends are dumb, so you're like the smartest guy I know. So I appreciate you coming on, man. Looking forward to talking to you again later in the future.
Man, thanks for having me on, brother.